Hello, everybody. By the year 2030, college football may have jumped the shark. So if you feel that way, all you have to do is call 1 800, call their bluff. I know that's too many numbers, but you're going to have to take my word for it. Uh, when something has jumped the shark, you just know it, do you? Look at my teeth. Sorry about the squeaking. Okay, guys. This is definitely the kind of video that I've been waiting to make for a long time now, and this has been in the works. At least in my mind, it's been in the works for the last couple months, to be honest with you guys. And noticing just the latest developments the last couple weeks leading into this, um, it's just the tip of the iceberg, in my opinion. And I've purposely titled this video Gaslighting and Hypocrisy of Competition. I was wondering when I was going to get to this, but it might as well be now that I start voicing my opinion about this. And yeah, my opinion doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things when it comes to college football and what people in the hierarchy of college football do, the decision making and all that. Of course, my opinion doesn't matter. But then again, so many people's opinions, they just don't matter. When you look at the actions of the very few being taken up at the very top of this, it's pretty obvious what they're doing. Now, for starters, I'm going to attach a link to a recent article written by Ross Dellenger of Yahoo Sports. And I'm pretty sure most of you, if not all of you guys, have read it by now. But I'm going to link it anyway in the description box below, where he talks about Big Ten and SEC officials uh, recently getting together, meetings in New Orleans, discussing new formats for the college football playoff, expanding the format to either 14 teams or 16 teams. And it goes into a lot more depth than just that. It goes into a lot more than just how many teams are involved going forward in the future. And before you guys even think about it, no, it's not going to benefit everybody else, quote unquote. It's just going to benefit the very few. Now, under the 14 team format, the proposed model would be 4-4-2-2-1 plus 1. The plus 1 being an at large bid. And we know by all intents and purposes that in most cases that would be Notre Dame if they were to win enough games and be ranked in the top 14. And 4-4, meaning automatic qualifiers being given to both the Big Ten and the SEC, and the 2 automatic qualifiers each going to the Big 12 and the ACC. And of course, the 1 spot being given to the best group of 5 conference champion, or group of whatever number champion. Now, backtracking a little bit here, last year there was a memorandum of understanding um, basically agreed to by everybody in the room that governing power, decision making power ultimately was given to the Big Ten, the SEC, to have that right to govern the way that they wanted to. So the final decision making duties were given to the Big Ten, the SEC. That was the part of that deal, of the Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, in other words. And yeah, you can tell already where this is going. Now, you don't need to be a rocket scientist. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to figure out what's going on here. Now, let's see how I can phrase this. We are supposed to be having a sport where everybody supposedly has a legitimate chance to compete on the same level, on the same stage, which obviously is not true when you look at everything. But that's the facade. That's the appeal. That's the allure. That's the beautiful lie being told to college football fans. It's like, oh, everybody has a chance. Not really. And when you read this article by Ross Dellenger, I mean, definitely interesting points to take. And Ross is just reporting what he's being told. And you'll you'll read comments being made by other conference commissioners like ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips, where he says there needs to be fairness and access to the championship. It needs to be a true championship, not artificial and not an invitational. Well, that's wonderful. That's wonderful, Jim. Because where were you in these last few years alone? Oh, and by the way, how's that working out, Jim, with your lawsuit between the ACC and Florida State and Clemson? How's that coming along? Just saying. Anyway, it's so funny that Jim Phillips has to be the one to say that, as if he had to give up power, you know. And then Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark, he goes on in this article. He says that he's going to have a predictive analysis on the playoff models that are being pitched, and he says, "I'll be armed with data." Okay, fine, bring your data with you, Brett Yormark. But why did you give up power the previous year? Now, these commissioners talk a big game and they say this, that, or the other thing. They say they're going to do this to improve their conference. They say they're going to do this to uh, further stabilize the sport of college football. But their actions are very much questionable, if you ask me. And later on in this same article, uh, conference commissioners in the group of whatever number conferences, they say that they're going to fight to expand past one spot in the college football playoff, which have a good time with that because that's not going to happen anytime soon. I have a loaded opinion about that all by itself, and hopefully I get to it in this rant. But yeah, I mean, yeah, Tim Pernetti, American Athletic Conference Commissioner, he chimed in a little bit in this article. Not that it had not that it had any sort of value to it, but I'm just being honest with you guys. What we're entering here for college football is a really dark time. And I can see the writing on the wall years from now. I mean, I've been seeing it the last few years alone, and I'm not liking what I'm seeing. I'm going to be flat out honest. I'm not liking what I'm seeing. When you follow the money and you see the paper trail of money being traced back to the higher ups, to the powers that be that are running this sport, that supposedly tell you that they have your best interests in mind, whereas their actions say otherwise. They're saying, oh, we're doing this for the greater good of college football. All the while, they're lining up their pockets and increasing their bank accounts while they laugh all the way to the bank. And it's kind of funny that there was a little snippet there in Ross Dellenger's article where ESPN was supposedly concerned about what the Big Ten, the SEC were doing. I read that part and I was like, are you kidding me? Now you're going to say something about this, ESPN, after everything that you've done on your own part to basically screw everybody over? Really? You're going to chime in now and try to be the voice of reason, ESPN? Really? The quote I'm referring to is this: "You're going to alienate part of the country." One of the power brokers said that. Oh, gee, no crap, Sherlock. You're going to alienate part of the country. Well, haven't you already done that in the last 20 years? Ever since the BCS era? Haven't you already done that? And I'm sorry, but this whole thing stinks. If you want me to be honest with you guys, this whole thing stinks. Future college football playoff formats, no matter what form they take, whether 14 team, 16 team, 24 team, 32 team, whatever. I'm convinced that it's never going to be enough for the Big Ten, the SEC, to push their narrative and to push whatever it is that they're going to push, such as, oh, we just need more money. We want more money. We need to have that, blah, blah, blah. There has to be this need for greed, so to speak. And after a while, it gets very tiring. It gets very tiresome, and it has to be called out for what it is. And the reason why I'm not happy about other conference commissioners, such as Jim Phillips and Brett Yormark, is that they're also not showing any true leadership here in this situation. Let's be honest. You're supposedly power conference commissioners and you're not acting like it. You're bending over backwards for Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti, who, let's be honest, don't care about anyone but themselves and their own conferences and their own schools, and doing the bidding of pleasing media partners like ESPN and Fox. That's all they care about. They care about the money and they care about the power, nothing else. They don't care about the fans. They don't care about anybody else outside of their own conferences, their own bubbles. And that's all there is to it. This is about money. This is a power grab. This is a money grab. And you got to call it for what it is, guys. Okay. Future college football playoff formats, they're a joke. And they're going to be a joke. This is not a fair way to determine a real national champion. And wasn't that what we were looking for all these years? Ever since the early 1990s, we've been pushing for some sort of format where we can determine a real national champion. And guess what? We still don't have it. We still don't really have it. And I'm going to also link in the bottom in the description box below um, a few videos where other YouTubers, other people have been chiming in about this, and you'll know them well, such as, for example, Greg Flugar, Coos Corner, JJ, University of Pittsburgh fan, John Kurtz, and of course, I might as well link that one video from Yahoo Sports themselves about, Pat Forty and Dan Wetzel, Ross Dellenger, how they're seeing this supposedly. And guys, you got to pay attention to what everybody's saying. Okay, this is a bad deal. Long term, big picture, this is a bad deal. This is short sighted. This has no discernment and no real forward thinking deep into the future. This is a short term money grab. This is all about power. This is all about pushing a narrative and reestablishing the narrative that ESPN and various other media partners have been pushing so hard to have established, so that they can get you to think that the Big Ten, the SEC, are always going to be the top dogs no matter what because they say so, quote unquote. I'm sorry, but this is garbage. I'm being honest with you. Right? This is where I want to be blunt, guys, and I want to get to certain things that before I run out of time here. This is where I want to get into certain things about what's being proposed here. And bear with me here if I go over on time here and have to split this into parts, but is ESPN concerned? Let's just start off with that. And Fox for that matter. Are they concerned? No, they're not. And I want to just address this to both Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti, and not just them, because they're just commissioners. They're just puppets at the end of the day, doing the bidding of ADs and presidents of schools that want what they want. And I want to address this to all the Big Ten and SEC uh, administrators, such as presidents and ADs in particular. And I'm trying to be as blunt as I possibly can concerning treating everybody fairly, treating all the other conferences fairly, whether power conference or group of whatever number conference. I'm just going to be blunt. Big Ten and SEC, you don't care about the group of whatever number conferences. You don't care about the Group of Six conferences. You just don't. I'm sorry, you don't care about the G level conferences whatsoever. You don't give a rat's butt. Let's just be honest. You don't give a rat's butt about the G level conferences. When have you ever given a rat's butt about it? When? You try so hard over all these years to push your narrative so that you can keep G level conferences down throughout all the years, last few decades especially. Northern Illinois, their run, early 2010s, forgotten. Boise State, the prototypical example, try to make them forgotten. Any G level conference schools that try to rise up in any way, you try to keep them down. I mean, I can go through all the lists there, but that's just how I think. When have you ever cared about the G level conferences? You never have. This is a joke. And long term, big picture, whether we want it or not, and personally, I don't want this to happen. I'm not. I'm going on record and saying I don't want this to happen in any way, but I have a feeling, just looking at the writing on the wall, I believe it's going to happen regardless. I believe the Big Ten, the SEC, are going to plot and scheme and find a way to push out the G level conferences altogether. I believe it's going to happen. I want to be included in this thing. I want to see the G level conferences compete in the college football playoff, but I don't think it's going to happen long term. I think there's going to be some sort of event that happens where it causes an actual breakaway, where the Big Ten, the SEC, eventually do break away. They find some sort of lame excuse to break away from everybody else, and they just do their own thing. I believe this is where it's all leading to. And before you guys say, oh, that's not going to happen, why do they need to break away? They have all the power and advantages they have right now. And to your point, that's true. They do have the power, they do have the governing ability to do whatever they want. That is true. But it's also true that there's going to be a massive amount of pushback to a point where the Big Ten and the ACC are just going to throw up their hands and say, you know what, we're just going to get rid of all of you guys and just do our own thing. And if you don't like it, too bad. I think it's coming. Within a few years from now, guys, I think it's coming. 2030s especially, it's coming. It's not going to be an overnight thing. It's not going to happen tomorrow, obviously. But I think the writing is on the wall, long term, big picture, that this is where it's going. And people are just going to have to deal with it, supposedly. I'm sorry, but that's where we're going. And I want to just touch on a few other things like SEC, the SEC wanting to get to a 9 games conference schedule. Well, guess what, guys? You should have done that many years ago. You should have thought about doing that many years ago instead of basically screwing around in mid November with FCS opponents that you always do, no matter what. You claim that you're the best, and yet you screw around with FCS opponents in mid November. How about you be consistent with what you're doing, SEC? You claim to be the very best, and yet all you ever do is schedule games against, for example, the Citadel, East Tennessee State, and the Campbell Fighting Camels. No disrespect to those schools, mind you, but come on. You claim you're the best, play the best. But of course, with that, it's like, okay, so you will go to a 9 game SEC schedule. And we all know that ESPN is going to be willing to pay for that at some point. And for non-conference, you're having this scheduling agreement between the SEC and the Big Ten, where it becomes nearly impossible to schedule anything against Big Ten teams or SEC teams, so that you can stack the deck against everybody else and say, oh, look at us, look at our quality of our schedule, both in conference and out of conference, so that you can't touch us, and all this strength of schedule bullcrap that I keep hearing year in and year out. And about strength of schedule, that's a farce. Can we get that out of the way, guys? That's a farce. Strength of schedule, that metric, that's an illusion created by media partners like ESPN where they put in their preseason rankings to artificially pump up the perception of these teams. That's what ESPN does all the time. That metric they always use is called FPI. It's like, oh, this is what ESPN thinks, so we got to go with it. No, you don't. No, we don't have to go with that. That's a farce. They're always putting in these artificially pumped in, rankings and numbers where they tell you, oh, this is how good an SEC team's going to be, or this is how good a Big Ten team's going to be. I'm sorry, that's crap. And we need to get rid of that ASAP. And again, back to this Big Ten SEC scheduling agreement. Yeah, you're going to have a stronger non conference schedule between yourselves. And that's probably what you wanted anyway, ultimately. But then guess what? You're boxing everybody out. You're shutting everybody out of the opportunity to play against you guys. Aside, of course, from playing games against other conferences in the college football playoff itself. But never mind that. And what really gets me would be, of course, the automatic qualifying bids, the AQs. And there are like a few examples I can go through right now where it's like, this is garbage. Automatic qualifiers, number one, automatic qualifying bids to the Big Ten and the SEC. That's going to make conference championship games and weekends meaningless. Okay, you'll still have your conference championship game itself. You'll still have that 1 versus 2, but then it's like, oh, we can have 3 versus 6 and 4 versus 5. Well, what is it proving? Tell me, guys, what is it proving? Is that your fancy way of saying, oh, we're going to give out participation trophies? Oh, but it means more. It just means more, really. You're in 6th place in your conference and you have 4 or 5 losses for the season. And you're going to claim that, oh, we have great quality losses. Really? Look, a win is a win and a loss is a loss. It's not our problem. It's not the fans' problem if you guys up in your ivory towers can't decide the value of a win or a loss. I'm sorry. A win is a win and a loss is a loss. It's going to make conference championship games and weekends meaningless. More meaningless as time goes on. It's like, okay, more football, yeah, but at what cost? Count the cost, guys. Secondly, rewarding 3rd to 6th place teams in your conference, Big Ten, SEC, even though you have an 8-4 or 7-5 record, at worst, maybe. I'm sorry, but are we in the business of coddling teams now? I'm sorry, about Alabama, what they did last year. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if they lost to a couple 6-6 teams. Why are they whining, pissing, and moaning over all that? I'm sorry, but this is ridiculous. The incentive to wanting to get good, the incentive to wanting to play at your best is diminished because you can only get this, 6th place, and it's like, oh, we can cruise our way to the championship now. We can get to 6th place and just win our playing game to get the AQ, and then we can just go do what we got to do in the college football playoff, and everything will be okay. It's diminishing. It's just diminishing the value of the season altogether. I'm sorry if some people don't even see that, but that's what I'm seeing. That's just my opinion. And third, it's a slap in the face to the G-level conferences. This is another thing that gets lost in translation here because all the while you're worried about the 5th or 6th place Big Ten or SEC team getting in via AQ, and then you have your Conference USA team or your American Athletic team or your Sun Belt Conference team, or let me just say it, MAC, Mid-American Conference team, getting to their respective conference championship game as the first or second best team in that conference. And let's just say that they either win or lose that conference championship game. Let's just say a Conference USA team is 11-1, or a Sun Belt Conference team is 12-0, and American Athletic team is 10-2, and let's just say one of them happens to lose their conference championship game. You're just going to punish them so badly that they can never recover. What kind of message is that, guys? Tell me, what kind of message is that exactly? I mean, really, give me a break. We're not measuring wins and losses equally. We're just not. And so you're going to tell me that a Big Ten SEC team with 4 or 5 losses is that much more valuable than a Conference USA team that basically busts their butt to even get to 11 wins. And then the moment they lose a game or two, they're done forever. That is such a terrible message to send. It shows that there's no such thing as fairness in this sport. I want to be completely honest with you guys. What are we doing? I'm being honest with you guys right now. What are we doing? A win is a win and a loss is a loss. It should not matter what conference you play in. If you win enough games, you should be rewarded as such. You should be treated accordingly. Who cares what kind of brand power you have, if you do have brand power or not? Who cares at the end of the day? If you play well enough, you should be recognized. That's all there is to it. Huh. And this Ross Dellenger article again, let me just mention this. Contacted for this story, SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey, arguably the most influential leader in the industry. And let me add something here. Arguably the most influential leader in the industry, and let me edit this, and the biggest horse's ass in college football, declined comment on college football playoff format concepts. Now, I know that I just went off the rails there, but I'm just being honest. I got to vent at some point. And I'm sorry, Greg Sankey, I don't respect you. Okay, you don't care about anybody or anything other than yourself, your own narrative, your own conference, your own schools. And I'm sorry that I used a bad word technically just now, but it's got to be said about you. Greg Sankey, you don't care. Okay, you don't care about G level conferences. You don't care about the ACC or Big 12. You only care about your own bank account. And within a few years, you're probably going to think about retiring anyway and riding off to the sunset, knowing you. And this is why I titled this Gaslighting and Hypocrisy of Competition. The gaslighting part is obvious. You gaslight everybody. You threaten people with, oh, we're just going to take our ball and go home if we don't get what we want. Who cares? Greg Sankey, who cares? You're a flaming narcissist anyway. Let's just be honest. Really, you try to push all these narratives, and if you don't get what you want, you're going to keep going to the bargaining table until you do get what you want. How does that win you any respect, Greg Sankey? Really? Really, and Big Ten, SEC, they keep threatening, if we don't get what we want, we'll just take our ball and go home and do our own thing. Well, go ahead. Call your bluff. You've made enough money as it is throughout all these years. You think you're so big, bad, and powerful. Go ahead, do your own thing. Let's just see if 10 years from now you're still going to stand, if you're still going to win the hearts and minds of everybody in college football. Let's just see. Let's find out. You have to earn your way to championship status. This is what I've always believed. You have to earn your way to championship status. You have to prove it on the field that you're worth it, regardless of how much talent you have. If you accumulate 10 wins or 11 wins in a football season, regular season, you should be recognized. Like I said before, doesn't matter what conference you play in. That should not matter. And the fact that we're treating this as such a big deal, where it's like all this tribalism involving conference, affiliation, it's pride. Let's just call it like it is, guys. It's pride. And I can't support this. I just can't support this. Um, I'm going to take a little break and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back, guys, with round two, so to speak, of this rant that I started. Um, yeah, so what I'm going to do here in this second part of this rant, I'm going to share with you guys a few screenshots of comments that really stood out to me revolving around topics like this, revolving around topics like the SEC and the Big Ten wanting to get bigger and bigger pieces of the pie, so to speak, in the college football playoff. Starting with this one that I found back in December from James Scott. I'm going to try to read as much as I can from this comment and the other comments that I'm about to share with you. Starting with James Scott, his comment. So here's my take. The SEC wants to give the appearance that they want to go to a playoff model all of their own. However, it's really just a swerve. What they actually want is to levy their current weight and relevance to garner more CFP bids, which, as you've seen just recently, this is what they're trying to do. What they are trying to avoid is what they see on the horizon. This is the point that James is trying to make here. Parity in the FBS across the board. They know if the Big 12 and the ACC receive as many playoff slots bids, then recruiting will start to balance out. Speaking of recruiting of talent, players, the SEC knows with NIL, there is a very real possibility that they lose their stronghold on future NFL talent. Then they are in danger of losing their monopoly of quote unquote best conference slash best players in TV marketing. And I would consider that quite a big part of what they're trying to do, what they and the Big Ten are trying to do. And what James Scott was referring to in this comment of his was that there was talk about the SEC all by themselves breaking away and trying to do their own thing, their own conference tournament, which of course that was a bluff. But in the grand scheme of things, I do see it on the horizon eventually, 2030s especially, where the Big Ten and the SEC are just going to go on their own way, and the breakaway is going to happen one way or the other, in my opinion, guys. How we get there and what causes it exactly, I don't know, but I think it's going to happen. And that's what James Scott was kind of referring to in his comment here. The SEC wanted to give the appearance that they want to go to a playoff model all of their own, but it's just a swerve. And that's a lot of what Greg Sankey and all these presidents and ADs for these power conferences do. They really swerve people. They really use misdirection and bluffs and word salad to get you to fear and panic about certain things concerning college football. This is what they do. And they use the media like Yahoo Sports and ESPN and all these other outlets to get you to think certain things. What's that term called? Sleight of hand? It's like, oh, let's see what we're doing over here, but don't see what we're doing over there. That's what the term means. So there's a lot of that going on. And really, as college football fans, we have to determine, what's real and what's not when we're reading content such as these articles by Ross Dellenger. Just so you guys know. And I'm going to share another comment real fast here. This is a short one by Jerry that found this on Yahoo Sports article. I mean, not really long article, not real long comment, but this is just something I wanted to share. This is what Jerry said. Just a general college football comment. The whole ranking system is pointless. Rankings are nothing but a bunch of coaches and sports writers telling you how things should be. Things should be settled on the field and the best team wins. If you win your conference, you should have a playoff spot, regardless of the Power 4 or 5. I mean, that's really to the point what Jerry just said in his comment. I mean, we have all these bells and whistles, all these ridiculous opinions by hired sports writers and media personalities. It's like, oh, this is the way it should be. This is our perception of this Big Ten team over here or that SEC team over there. It's garbage. It's just nonsense. It's like loud noise generated for what exactly? for amusement? I mean, really, it really gets to me after a while what I have to put up with as a college football fan. And another side note before I go on to a couple other screenshots here, what the Big Ten and SEC are doing here in negotiations and trying to get bigger pieces of the pie, apparently, when you break down all the calculations of how much more money supposedly they're going to get out of this when they expand the field to 14 or 16 teams, apparently they're only going to get $3 million more per school. I mean, okay, that's more money for your bank accounts, respectively, but in the grand scheme of things, in the long run, how does it benefit you? $3 million is a drop in the bucket in comparison to all these other money figures that you're seeing being reported. What are we doing here? Again, what are we doing here? Anyway, let's just get to another screenshot here. I've been paying attention to all this stuff about Project Rudy and college student football league, all these other proposed super leagues, which right now I don't give a lot of weight to right now because I do think a big part of that is just bluffing, nothing but bluffing, and not a lot of real substance um, until proven otherwise, in my opinion. But here are just these comments right here in this one big screenshot. LJ, Peter, and Jeremy. You can just read these comments for what they are. By adopting the above plan, LJ's comment, college football will speed up their death by 2 to 5 years. This is what LJ believes. It is clear that in its present form, college football will be a Premier League. Premier League, what he means by that, Premier League, that's that soccer league way in Europe, in England, type arrangement in a few years. The less for money and power by universities, coaches, players, and networks, TV networks, has sent college football into a death spiral. From one perspective, it's a truly impressive accomplishment to destroy college football for 80 to 90% of the country in less than 10 years. Pay attention to what LJ is saying, guys, whether or not you agree with him. From a different perspective, greed and power-hungry people and institutions have killed the golden goose of income and goodwill that college football brought into each university. While the total destruction of college football may be avoided, the current actions and the trends they are creating means a massive negative outcome for the vast majority of universities and fans is guaranteed. It is sad and tragic for all of us. Well, a lot of what LJ just said, can you really argue with it, guys? I mean, when I took this screenshot of this comment, I think it was like a few months ago, I mean, it definitely rings more true now than it even did back then. Just saying. And Peter, his comment, and why didn't anyone think of this before destroying all the conferences? Does it really make sense for Rutgers tennis team to travel to California to play a conference game, or California Berkeley team to travel to Florida? Make one big minor league football conference and be done with it. And that's another thing that I haven't even touched on. All these super conferences, all these large conferences like the Big Ten, which purposely wanted to be nationwide, wanted to have this nationwide appeal where you stretch from all the way from Rutgers to Washington and Oregon. I mean, I'm sorry, guys, but it's like a lack of common sense just so you can keep chasing the dollar. You know, you can count all the money that you want, but you can't buy yourself common sense. Okay? Can I put it that way? Count your money, fine, but can any of that money buy you common sense and happiness? Really? I'm just going to put that one out there. And Jeremy, last one, might as well read his comment too. This is more to do than just football. Yep. This is Class A, 100%, no doubt about it, proof that colleges and universities were never about education. Well, you can debate that, but, or at least they haven't been in decades. Colleges are businesses just like any other institution. Well, it's been getting very corporatized, hasn't it? Trying to become more and more like the NFL by the day. They lie, cheat, and steal They lie, cheat, and steal just like everyone else in the name of the bottom line, and they could not be more thrilled with all the changes in college football so they can rake in the money, hand it to a few people, and then pretend they care about 18-year-olds. Boom. There we go with that one. And obviously, when you pull up the graphic again, the one that I made for this video, the one I made for this gaslighting and hypocrisy of competition, you know, you see that little part there where you have the Big 12 logo, the American Athletic Conference logo, and the Mountain West Conference logo all gathered together, and Big 12 is saying follow the money. And you see a big bag of money that says private equity on it. Well, why do you think these conferences are looking to private equity at this point? They're being forced to get to that point because the Big Ten, the SEC, have such a huge money gap that separates them from the other conferences. Big 12's been kicking the tires on that for a long time about, oh, private equity, we should do this. We should look into these all these private equity firms and see if we can strike a better deal with them. Maybe rename our conference and get naming rights for all the stadiums and sponsorships, all the logos on our uniforms and all this other crap. They're being forced to do it because the Big Ten, the SEC, they're greedy and they don't want to give up any quarter. They don't want to give up any spot to these other conferences. So forward thinking, yes, but also a double-edged sword when it comes to private equity, especially when it's not monitored correctly. Private equity can be a slippery slope, and I don't think it's going to benefit anyone in the long run, long term, big picture, private equity. So that's another point of being concerned. And just above that part of the graphic, I have that street sign where it says respect, ethics, honesty, and integrity. The integrity of the game. Well, when you throw around all this money, when you throw around all these BS politics and all this stuff about, oh, we got to have this, we got to have that, we got to protect our brand in the Big Ten and the SEC, you know, you can forget about integrity. You can forget about ethics. Obviously, you're not winning respect by being arrogant. And how are you being honest? Where's the honesty in all this? You tell the G level conferences that you can only have one spot in the college football playoff for all eternity, supposedly, and you're going to just basically say, oh, just be happy with it. That's not being honest. If we're all being honest here, nobody should be happy with that kind of deal. Okay, the only one who's going to be happy about it is the one at the top, or in this case, the two at the top, Big Ten and SEC. And their enablers, which would be TV networks like Fox Sports and ESPN, I'm going to say it. They're enablers, they're flying monkeys, going back to the gaslighting part of this, narcissism. I've studied so much about the topic of narcissism because I've been, I've been an abuse victim of narcissism. I've bumped into a bunch of narcissists in my life, so I know it. So I know exactly what narcissism is. And this is like a key example of it, just in the business world, mind you, but this is another classic example of narcissism. Big Ten and SEC officials are always beating their chests saying, oh, look at us, look at us. This is about us. This is not really about you. Even though we're going to say it's about you, it's not really about you. It's about us. Narcissism. That's what it is, guys. And, you know, maybe I make light of it in this graphic here, but I say in that speech bubble there above Fox Sports, ESPN, we make the rules, you follow them and be happy. Well, they directed all this. They called the shots, basically, in conference realignment. All these TV networks, ESPN especially. We make the rules, you follow them and be happy. Come on now. So for ESPN to stand on their soapbox and say, oh, we're concerned. No, you're not. No, you're not. If you were so concerned, you would never have done it. You would never have driven Oklahoma and Texas to join the SEC from the Big 12. you would have never done the things that you've done if you were truly concerned. You don't operate that way, ESPN and Fox, and you know it. Spare me the crap. And so you have Pac-12 logo like sitting out there with the crying emoji. And then just ask what happened. Just ask Oregon State and Washington State what happened to them. They've been left out in the cold in Siberia, so to speak, way out west, and they have to rebuild the Pac-12. And definitely in one broad perspective, I just have to say I feel really sorry for especially Oregon State and Washington State for their situation. Should never have been that way. But again, because of meddling, because of backstage politics, because of conference realignment and all this other stuff, because you have to chase the money no matter what, Oregon State and Washington State are victims. In one broad perspective, yes. So yeah, it's just really disgusting. And then you have the ACC messing around the way that they do with the whole thing with Florida State and Clemson. Jim Phillips being a clown. I'm just going to say it. He's a clown of a leader. He's not a real leader. He just gets up there and says, good things once in a while, but he doesn't really mean what he says. Really, what a clown. And I'm sorry, that's like one of the main points that I got to make before I finally get off here is that conferences need real leadership. We don't need used car salesmen here, okay, guys? We need real leaders. We don't need people constantly passing the buck here and there and wherever else and bending over backwards for media networks like ESPN and Fox all the time. We don't need that. Now, I know that's too much to ask for in this landscape today because I know what drives everything, money, unfortunately. But this is what we need. We do need real leadership at a conference level. But of course, are we going to get that? I doubt it. We have a bunch of clowns running a three-ring circus instead. That's the truth. And so I started off this whole thing by saying call their bluff. Well, what do we have to lose at this point, the rest of us here? G-level conferences, ACC, Big 12. What do we got to lose? Really? We've already lost so much. This current postseason format and system has already been rigged, has already been manipulated so much by the Big Ten, the SEC. What do we have to lose? Just call their bluff and see what happens. And there's going to be a separation anyway, whether we want it or not. So just do it. Get it over with. Let's just see how ugly the faces are, so to speak. And, really, in this whole thing about the CFP selection committee, I've said it many times. I'm going to say it again. Those people are jokes. We don't have the right people in place to make any sort of meaningful committee, a selection committee of people who are going to do the right thing. They're not. They're bought and paid for. Bought and paid for by, guess what? You know who? ESPN. And, it's just not going to work. It's not going to work out long term. The committee, I'm hoping that this committee will go away one day, if you want me to be honest with you. I'm hoping that we will get back to a point where we can just determine things on the field, where teams will just play things out on the field and see what happens, where we don't need a stupid committee of 12 or 13 people getting into a room and having cups of coffee and telling jokes and not really reviewing the stats of these teams involved. That's how I truly feel about this committee. They're a joke. They're part of the three-ring circus, bought and paid for by ESPN. That's all it is. I'm sorry, but I'm getting tired of this facade. And one more screenshot I got to share. It's of my own comment that I made to Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen, that University of Pittsburgh fan. Shout out to you, JJ. I'm just going to read out what I typed out not too long ago. Well said, JJ. I've mentioned this to Kuz's Corner, but I'm going to drop a rant about this, of course, which I'm doing now. As a G level conference fan, G number conference fan, this college football playoff format is an absolute joke, which I truly believe. I'm not claiming the G level conferences are great quality conferences. Okay, I'm not claiming that at all. I'm not claiming that the G5, G6 are great quality conferences. However, if you want them to stay relevant and have meaning to exist, because let's be honest, guys, why does Conference USA exist? Why does the American Athletic Conference exist? Why does the Sun Belt Conference exist? Mid American Conference, the one where my Ohio Bobcats are in. Why does that exist? Why does the Mountain West Conference exist? And why is the Pac-12 existing? If you want them to stay relevant and have meaning to exist, then you can't keep expanding the college football playoff, give the Big Ten and SEC endless amounts of auto bids, and then tell the G level conferences that they can only get one of their conference champions to qualify. Because what are we doing at the end of the day? Either you're trying your very best to determine a national champion that college football fans can respect, or you're not. You're just in it for the money. I think we know the answer to that question already. That's not what anyone should call a legitimate national championship tournament. I call that, this is what I say, Stephen Timothy Vitt, this is what I say. I call that a quote unquote, look at us, we have money and power. This is only about us. Invitational of narcissistic supply. There you go. If I could just sum it up right there for you guys, if I can just summarize it right there for you guys, that's it. And I'm sorry, I just can't. Sometimes I get to a loss for words when it comes to reading the articles that I read, such as Ross Dellenger's article. And I get tired of this narrative. I get tired of this Truman Show kind of thing. You know, the Truman Show, that Jim Carrey movie. I get tired of this Truman Show kind of thing where I'm being told one thing, I'm being told to see this, whereas the truth is I'm really seeing this. And I am tired of seeing a bought and paid for committee going into a room and supposedly, keyword supposedly, doing their jobs, and then they come back out and they give you all this bullcrap reasoning about why an undefeated Florida State team could not get to a 14 playoff, even though they went undefeated. Yes, they lost their quarterback, Jordan Travis, to an injury. Okay, duly noted, but that should not have been the thing that cost them that spot. They put in Alabama because, once again, Alabama whined, pissed, and moaned so that they can get in. And also because they were an SEC team. That's the truth. And because ESPN was playing politics. Can we ever just tell the truth, guys? Really? I get tired of this whole Truman Show setup where I'm being told that this is what we're supposed to be doing, and then the actions don't line up with it. I get really tired of it. Really, it's hard for me to put into words. Really, another point I got to make is that don't tell us that the Big Ten and the SEC, that teams in the Big Ten and the SEC are the best because specifically Fox and ESPN told us so. I'm done taking media networks at their word. I'm done taking ESPN's word for it. Okay? I'm done taking Fox's word for it. We're college football fans. We have brains. We have eyes. We can see clearly what's going on the field of play. Okay? We don't need to be told like we're like, I don't know, 5-year-old kids and we don't know what we're seeing. Yes, we do know what we're seeing. Okay? And then, you know, brand power and, prestige and perception and all this money, all this operating budget stuff and bullcrap, just laying it out now. Look, if if you follow a big brand like the Ohio State University, or you follow Alabama, or you follow any other big brand, name it, Georgia, Michigan, any other big brand, just toss it out here. I don't care which one. Penn State, Auburn, Florida, list goes on and on, right? If you're a fan of a big brand school, I would not expect you to care so much about the smaller schools out there, especially G level conference schools. But it may not matter to you, but it matters to me. It matters to a hell of a lot of other people in the country who either live right next door to these small school campuses, or they're close enough to hear enough about these schools and these college teams. I give a crap. Okay. That's the bottom line. That is the bottom line. Okay. That is the bottom line because Stephen Vitt said so. All right. I give a crap about the Ohio Bobcats. Okay. I'm not claiming that they're the best because many seasons have come and gone, and obviously they weren't the best. They weren't the best in the MAC. Okay. I give a crap about the Ohio Bobcats. It's just that simple. They're worth giving a crap about. I give a crap about other schools like the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. Care about them. Care about the Appalachian State Mountaineers. I give a crap about the Boise State Broncos, obviously. I give a crap about the UTEP Miners. I give a crap about the Marshall Thundering Herd. I give a crap about the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. I give a crap about these small schools. And who are you, ESPN, Fox, SEC, Big Ten? Who the hell are you to tell me otherwise? Who are you to tell me what I should and should not care about? Just because you want to push a narrative that involves your big boy schools. I'm done. I'm just done with this. And if we ever have any real leadership at all, any real leadership at the top with these conference commissioners and all these ADs and all these school presidents and other officials, if we ever have any real leadership, they will start doing the right thing and start calling their bluff. Start calling the bluff of the Big Ten, the SEC, and all the enablers that enable them to do what they do. That's it. I've rambled far enough. I've done more than enough talking. And yeah, it's gaslighting, it's hypocrisy, it's a farce of a competition. And we already are there, but we are definitely approaching now dangerous times in college football history where perception just isn't reality anymore. And I'm just going to keep saying it. Greg Sankey, Tony Petitti, all you guys that run the Big Ten, the SEC, ADs, presidents especially, you don't give a crap about the G level conferences. When have you ever? That's it. If you guys want to do your own thing, fine. But let the rest of us do our own thing too. Let the G5, G6 have their own playoff tournament. Let the ACC and Big 12 do their own thing too. And just have at it. That's the bottom line. Because Stephen Vitt said so. That's it. Let me know what you guys think. Been very passionate about this one. I need to gather my thoughts again about college football and what's going on here going forward. So let me know what you guys think. If you like this rant, please give this video a like. Hopefully I got the point across. And Bobcat Corner will, of course, continue because, like I said before, I give a crap about the Ohio Bobcats. Take care, guys.